Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the kickoff meeting for Cost Analytics. So, let me begin with by giving an introduction of myself. I am Aditya Chandak. I am a project manager with Target. I've been working in Target for the past 3 years, and the one of the projects that I worked on was smart pricing, which I believe everyone in Target is familiar with. So, having said that, the next project that I'll be working on is cost analytics, which we are here to talk about. So, without wasting any more time, let me go and start for the agenda for today. So, today's agenda is we'll be starting with the background for the project, followed by the scope of the project, what's included, what's not. Then I'll go over the project approach and the timelines for the same. Then we'll have roles and responsibilities so that everyone is aware of who's working on what and who's responsible for what. And I'll have a high-level communications plan followed by some of the risks that I've identified with the project. Then it will be the next steps and finally questions and answers if there's any. Sounds good? So let me begin with the background. So as you all know, Target is one of the biggest retailers in US and it is playing in one of the highly competitive markets, which is retail. Amazon, with its entire e-commerce business, is putting the prices lower and lower, and Target has to price match the competition. And in this price matching competition, we are not making money, or we are not making as much profit as we used to. Hence, Target wants to reduce the price of price of goods sold, and hence we are doing this project. So basically, the project will help A, to reduce cost of goods sold, B, which in turn will help increase margins and bring us back to profitability, C, it will help us to standardize and automate the process of negotiation. Right now, all the buyers, they have their own process, which is sort of very different from each other. So this will help us to automate the entire thing. And the last is it will also help us to implement a scalable solution, which we can expand to a lot of different categories, not just one. So this is the background for this entire project. Next we have is the scope. So the scope for the project is, the first one would be automation of data gathering. So we'll be looking at internal and external data such as COGS, sales, fulfillment cost, your warehouse cost, vendor funding, and external data such as the completer's price and commodity prices. So since we are looking at so many different data points, we need this whole process to be automated, and hence achieving that automation is one of the key tasks for us. Next is it should be in the form of a web application that can be accessed from anywhere, such as it just needs a browser. So that's the second key task, is to build that web application, and so wherein a buyer can log in and just look for the opportunity size for the respective vendors. The third is the application should also come up with negotiation points, such as your margin is too low, or we are paying a lot of fulfillment costs for this particular vendor, etc., etc. So these are things that this project should cover, this application should cover. Now, but having said that, this project will only look at domestic suppliers. International suppliers are out of scope to begin with, because to look at international suppliers, we also have to look at currency fluctuations, which currently is not it's not included. And by looking at just domestic suppliers, we'll be covering around 70% of the cost rate. So we'll start with domestic, and gradually, if it's a success, we'll move it on to international suppliers. Okay. The next is the approach. We'll be taking a phased approach, like all the other projects that happen in Target. The first is the outreach and requirements phase, which will end sometime mid-March. Then we have the design phase, which will end sometime late May. Then we have the build phase, which will end sometime mid-July. Then we have a testing phase which will go on parallel with the build phase and the implementation phase. And the final implementation will happen by November end. So it's close to a year, 11 months. So we hope to meet all the timelines and deliver this project by November end. Here is the timeline laid out. So as you can see, we start in January with requirements gathering, we end in mid-March, we define the scope. Once the scope is defined, we start with the design phase. Then once the design is complete, sometime late May, we start with the build. And parallelly, the testing begins, and the implementation and testing, everything gets over by November end. So those are the high-level timelines that we are looking at. Coming to roles and responsibilities. So as myself, I'll be the project manager, as I said earlier. So my responsibility will be to implement the best practices of project management. So I'll be responsible for weekly status reports, identifying any risk with the project, potential roadblocks, etc. Then we have Erika Liu, who will be the tech team lead. She has vast experience, over 10 years of experience in managing technical projects and leading technical projects. So she'll be responsible for requirement gathering, development, design, and implementation of the entire solution. So I welcome Erika on board with this. Um, the next is Mr. Vishal Jain. He'll be a QA lead. He'll be responsible for the quality assurance of the application. Um, so as we all know, QA is one of the most important uh, processes of the entire development project. So Vishal and his team would be responsible for that. I welcome Vishal as well on this team. Last but not the least is Mr. Steve Bade. He will be the business head for this project, the functional lead and our go-to man for any sort of business questions or requirements. So with this, I welcome you all on this team and look forward to working with all of you in the future. This is the high-level communications plan. So I'll send out a project status report every 2 weeks. It will be to the business team, and it will be form of a document. The next would be a status meeting. Then again, I'll organize every month, and this will be with all the project, all you guys, the leads as well as the business. Now, if apart from these meetings, if there's any other meeting is organized by anyone, then he or she would be responsible to send out the minutes of that meeting to everyone who attended that meeting. Then that should be done within 2 days. The next is a risk list, of which I have prepared at a high level. I'll be making the complete list and sharing it with Mr. Steve Bade. And this will be accompanied by a weekly status report. And every week, if there is any other risk, I'll accompany that in that status report. And the last is the team status reports, in which I'll be working with all you guys, the QA team and the tech teams. And it will be more like a stand-up meeting, which we'll have once every week on Fridays, in which people will just go around the room and see if what are they working on, and what are they planning to complete next week. So this is the high-level communications plan. So as I said earlier, I've identified a few high-level risks with the project. So there are three risks. First, it's related to quality. So this is a very data-intensive project. We'll be relying on both external and internal data for this project to be successful. So data reliability from various sources is one of the biggest risks. Now, how to mitigate this risk? Well, we have to perform quality checks at every step. So if we are importing data from a particular source, we need to ensure that the data in the source and that we've imported is the same. So those kind of checks should be done at every step. The next is a risk related with talent. Well, it's a very basic risk in which we should have the engineering resources in place on time, not before the project starts and not after the project should begin. So the job opening should be posted in advance, like 2 months, I would say, because that's usually the time frame which is required to hire, interview, and onboard engineers. Last is the scope. Now, if the scope, for some reason the scope changes and we decide to include, say, international suppliers as well, then this will hamper the entire technical team and we need additional resources to incorporate that. Hence, to mitigate that, the technical team should select changes that impact only the released modules and not any modules which are out of scope. So those are risks that I've identified so far, and if there are any in the future, I'll share them with you guys as and when they arise. So in terms of next steps, we'll start with the requirement gathering, both for user requirements and technical requirements, and then we'll scope those requirements, both business and technical, and then I'll come up with a project plan. So those are the high level next steps, and once the project plan is in place, we'll know in detail the dates for each deliverable and the milestones for the entire project. All right. With this, I'm open to any more questions that you might have. All right, thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with you all in the near future.